to support the platform just in case anything like this happens again, you can do it by way of PayPal, Patreon, Cash App, and also by the Anchor. And you can also further support the platform by way of going to the Teespring store or the shoe store that is located in the comment section below. An Ohio judge on Tuesday ordered two right-wing conspiracy theorists who targeted black voters with robocalls spreading disinformation in 2020 to spend 500 hours registering voters in low-income neighborhoods in the Washington, D.C. area. The ruling comes after Jacob Wall and Jack Berkman pled guilty to a single felony count of telecommunications fraud after they sent out thousands of robocalls during the 2020 presidential election promoting conspiracy theorists about mail-in voting. In addition to the 500 hours of community service, Cuyahoga County Common Police Court Judge John Statula fined each man 2,500 and placed them on 2 years of probation, ordering them to wear GPS ankle monitors with home confinement starting at 8 p.m. each day for the next 6 months of their probation. The voter registration requirement must be fulfilled by June of 2024. Berkman, age 56 of Arlington, VA, and Wall, age 24 of Irvine, California, were indicted in October of 2020 on 8 counts of telecommunications fraud and 7 counts of bribery. The men were accused of using a voice broadcast system to make about 85,000 robocalls to predominantly black neighborhoods in Ohio, Michigan, New York, Pennsylvania, and Illinois. In 2021, New York Attorney General Lolita James, who formed a bipartisan coalition with 50 other attorney generals and 12 phone companies to fight illegal robocalls across the country, published the purported scripts of the calls. James also filed a separate voter intimidation lawsuit against the two men in federal court in New York City after the robocalls reached over 5,000 New Yorkers. They face a $5.1 million fine levied by the Federal Communications Commission. Prosecutors also state that the men were responsible for about 3,500 calls to residents of Cleveland, a predominantly black city. The robocalls came at a time when many states were expanding mail in voting for the 2020 presidential election as the protective measures due to the pandemic. All stated in court this quote, absolute regret and shame over all of this. Berkman also echoed the same sentiments. Along with the robocalls, the men have been tied to a number of other political stunts aimed at spreading disinformation in 2020. Watkins states that she hopes that their required punishment to register voters in low income neighborhoods in Washington, D.C., where a significant amount of black people reside, will be transformative. Quote, I do think that these types of sentences are about making sure that folks have to interact with the people that they're potentially or have directly harmed. Now, that's not to say it's going to change the hearts and the minds of these two individuals, but it does put them squarely in the communities that they have impacted. So shout out to the few that like to come to this platform and that like to say in the comment section when I happen to do stories and you decide to skip over certain stories. Oh, why does why does everything have to be about race? Why do you always focus on race? Everything is about race. You're being so divisive. Well, why did these two, what seems to be Caucasian individuals, decide to go after predominantly black communities and to spread disinformation during a time of the presidential election? Why would they decide to do that? Why wouldn't they do that to people who look just like them? Explain that to me. Because, quote unquote, this has nothing to do with race. It had everything to do with race because they predominantly targeted the black market when it came to voting, because the black market is very important, right? When it comes to voting. And I'm saying black market for the third time for a variety of reasons, right? But, anyways, like I said before, it is what it is. They went after the demographic that is the utmost unserved, when it comes to voting. They're going after the main demographic that is not, in a sense, really paying attention when it comes to these types of issues. And they're also going after the demographic which politicians seemingly forget, look over, and don't really care about, right? And that's only due by way of the fact that the black community as a whole, they don't get together and pull monies together in order to put it into politicians' pockets so that these politicians can actually start advocating and speaking directly for them. Now, if you look at every other community out here, if you look at the Arab community, if you look at the LGBT, if you look at um, the Asian communities and many others, they will pull money from their own community and give it directly to the politicians so that they can, say the things that need to be heard. Black the black community, on the other hand, they're just like, well, we're here, that we could potentially vote, so if you want our vote, you need to, start dancing. And I keep telling people that's not how that works. It takes money. Politics is a money game, and if you're not dealing with money, then you're just going to be dealing with straight lies. And this is why black people, when it deals with politics, have been getting nothing but straight lies, because black people refuse to put up that money. It just is what it is, right? So, um, at the end of the day, this is not going to move. This is not going to change nothing. It's not going to change the hearts of these two men or the other men that are going to perform and do the exact same things that they've been doing every single year, that have never been caught, that are directly underneath the radar, that more than likely politicians and the government officials also know about, and they pay them directly under the table in order to spread misinformation consistently about this opponent or that opponent. Because at the end of the day, the government is a part of the exact same book, the exact same coin. Democrat and Republican, at the end of the day, are the exact same. It doesn't matter. One does something that the other one doesn't. The other one does something that is horrendous while the other ones seem angelic. It's all the exact same game, because they all work for the exact same house at the end of the day. Like I said, it's stupid and it's futile to literally go into comment sections and argue with somebody because they're a Democrat, they're Republican, they're Republican, they're a Democrat. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Like I said before, I understand at this moment in time why it is that humanity can never move past where it is at this moment in time. And it's due to the fact of frivolous and small minded arguments such as this that keep continuing every single day, that allow us to stay ignorant and not moving forward and trying to clean up messes from past times. This is why we are still suffering as human beings. But, irregardless, like I said, this had everything to do with race. Anybody that wants to say otherwise, you are completely just being stupid at this moment in time and deflecting, and refuse to acknowledge the fact that black people, the indigenous people, did not make the concept of race as we know it to be at this moment in time. It was the quote unquote founders, the Europeans, the pilgrims, the pagans, who came here to this continent after ravaging the lands and erasing the natives. Because as I told you guys before, for anybody that's still here that made it this far, let me just educate you just a little bit. When you look up the terminology American, it will tell you. I'm not talking about in the definitions of today. I'm talking about, go back and look at the definitions from the 1800s. The main definition of American was given to the indigenous people, people who are already here before Europeans ever found this land, even knew that it existed. American belonged to the indigenous people. After the indigenous people were erased, that terminology was then given to the people who erased the indigenous people. How did that happen? Because there was nobody here to, in a sense, say otherwise. So whenever you hear somebody say American, those are the main ones who have stolen the land. They're a part of that whole process. These are the exact same ones who continuously state, "Oh, leave the past in the past. The past is there for a reason. We must focus on the present and the future. Stop focusing on the past. The past has nothing to do with today. It has everything to do with today when you're consistently going around taking rights, making laws and changing every single thing in order to fit your narrative, while behind the scenes you're still using a title that was never meant for you at all. And it's not about you at all, because you are not and have never been indigenous to this continent ever. But like I said before, you don't really have a history. You don't really have any other title that you can use, because you left your main homeland. I'm sorry, you didn't leave it. They threw you out. I'm sorry. They threw out the trash and they just put you over here, hoping that you were going to go somewhere else. But anyways, past my rant. Past my rant. This had 100% everything to do with race.